In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at one of the features inside Anywhere Elementor Pro. Specifically, we're going to take a look at the taxonomy option. Now, what this does is it allows us to list and display taxonomies, something that Elementor and Elementor Pro currently can't do. We're going to use today's example to create a more feature-rich portfolio. So if you're interested, stick around and I'm going to take you through the entire process right now. My name is Paul C, this is WPTuts, and if you want to get more out of WordPress, consider hitting that subscribe button below and smashing the bell icon to be notified every time new content is added. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create something like what you can see on screen right now. This is an example where we're going to take business information, we're going to take a business group, for example, web design, logo design, graphic design, those kinds of things, group the businesses in there and have a nice taxonomy listing. Once you click on that taxonomy listing, it'll take you through to all of the businesses inside that portfolio. And finally, if you click on any of those businesses, you'll then go through and take a look at the actual business details, complete with custom post type and custom information. Now that we've gone through the whys, the wheres, and how would you use this, let's take a look at actually building it. Now there are three things that we need. We need to create three individual pages, templates, and so on. We need to create a page that will be the listing of all the different types of gallery we want to work with. And like I said in the intro, this could be properties, it could be car types, it could be anything you wanted to do. Just allows you to filter through. So we need to create that page. Then we're going to create two different theme templates with Elementor Pro. We're going to create an archive that'll list all the different projects underneath a specific type of portfolio. For example, graphic design, logo design, web design, and so on. And then finally, we'll create a single post template, which will display the finer details of each one of those individual project files or portfolio files. Hope that makes sense. Stick with me, and by the end of it, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And before we do that, we need to create our custom post types and also create any custom meta fields that are going to go with it. So let's just do that first of all. So we're going to come over to custom post type UI, CPT UI. We're going to come in there and we're going to say we're going to add in a new post type. So we'll kick this off by giving it a post type slug. Now this is a portfolio, so let's just keep it simple and just call this portfolio. Next up, we've got the plural and the single titles. So we're going to call this portfolios for plural and portfolio for singular. So we could leave it there if we wanted to, but we want to just change a couple of other options. Now we've taken a look in the past at the additional labels. I've already gone over this in various other videos, but if you're new to this and you're just following along to this, with regards to the additional labels, these are purely optional and you only need to fill those out should you want to change how things are displayed on the left hand side. For this tutorial, we don't need to change any of those, but you know if you want to, you can do. So just close that down to make life a little easier. Now the settings section, we do have a couple of things we want to change inside here. You can take a look. We can leave most of these things as they are, but we can also tweak them to get exactly what we want. So we take a look through, you can see we've got things like has archive and so on. Well, we want this to have an archive. So we're going to say true on that. We also want this to be hierarchical. In other words, we want to be able to stack them one underneath the other so we can have parents and so on, sort of subsections and so on. So we're going to say true to that. Then we're going to come down and we're going to just choose a couple of other things. So you can see at the moment we've got like query a variable with front and so on, all very complicated and things we don't really need to change. What we do want to do though is just come down and choose a menu icon and a couple of other things just to do with how this is going to be displayed. So we're going to use a dash icon. So I've already gone ahead and found that. So you can see there we go, dash icons, dash portfolio. If you don't know how to do that, just do a search for dash icons in Google. Choose an icon you want to use. At the top of that listing, it'll show you this little bit of code that you're going to use, this little bit of text you're going to use. You just drop that in there and then it will know exactly what icon is going to be used for this. Then we're going to say we're going to go to the menu position and we're going to set this as menu position 5. We're going to leave the supports title, editor and featured image. That's perfectly fine. We can use those. And then that's pretty much all we need to do. And now if we click on add post type, that'll add that in and create our first custom post type. And there we go, there's our new post type added. So there's the first thing done. Next thing we're going to do now is create a taxonomy, which is where we can then start to organize how all of our different categories are set up. The process is pretty simple and straightforward and almost identical to what we've just done. Only difference is we're going to come down to the CPT UI section on the left hand side and choose add edit taxonomies as opposed to post types. Click and open that up. So the first thing you're going to do is create the taxonomy slug. So we're going to call this portfolio category. So you start typing that in. And what you'll find is when we put a space in, it'll automatically put an underscore in there so we can make sure we don't get any problems. Again, we're going to drop in the plural label and the singular. So we're going to say portfolio categories. And we'll just copy that over and put that underneath the singular. We'll just call that category. Okay, so we've named it, we put the taxonomy slug in there. The next thing to do is attach it to a post type. So what do we want to attach this particular taxonomy to? You're not limited to just one, you can put this into multiple different ones. And as you can see, we've got portfolios, which is the custom post type we've just created, and that's what we want to associate it with. Check that. Click on add taxonomy, and then we've created our next taxonomy just to add that in. So now we've added that in. If we take a look on the left hand side, you'll see we now have portfolios. You can see we've got all portfolios, add new, and portfolio categories. Now we can come into the categories and take a look inside there. Now this is just exactly the same as you expect to see it inside the post categories or any other kind of taxonomy you create. It allows you to do a couple of things like put the name in, the slug, and the description. Now you can see there's a couple of additional options underneath that for the AE Pro, the University Anywhere Elementor Pro templates and so on. We're going to leave those. We're not going to touch those at all. We don't need those. But what we do need is an image, because if we want to have a nice layout that shows the different kinds of categories we've got, the portfolio categories, we want to assign an image to those. We can't do it directly inside here. So to do that, come back over to custom fields. What we're going to do is we're going to come in and add new inside custom fields. And what custom fields are going to allow us to do is going to allow us to go in and associate this directly with the actual portfolio categories listing. To do that, all we need to do is give it a name. I'm going to call this portfolio category extras. So I'll drop that name in there. We'll come back to the actual custom field we're going to drop in a moment. Next thing we need to do is go through and specify where this is going to be displayed. At the moment we've got post type is equal to posts. So we'll just put that, any field we create now, directly into the normal post template. What we want to do though is change this over, and we want to come down and we're going to say we want taxonomy. So we come down to forms, we choose taxonomy. Inside there it says equal to, and then we can choose what we want it to be equal to. Obviously we want it equal to our portfolio category taxonomy we just created. Come down, choose that, and we set the rule up so that it'll only display inside that particular section. So now we can go through the process of just creating the custom field that we want. Let's add a new custom field in. We're going to name this portfolio category image. Come to the next field, you can see it automatically puts that in with underscores instead of spaces. And we need to change the field type from text, and we want to set this to be image. So choose image from there. This is a required field. We want to make sure that is inserted. We also want to say we want to use the image URL because we're only using one single solitary image for this. And if we scroll down, we're going to choose the allowed file types, and we'll drop in there that just the file types we want to let people use. So all we've done is associate this custom field that allows us to upload an image and save the details into the database, and then we can use that to create the listing of our different categories. So hope that makes sense. Let's publish that. And now if we come back out to portfolios and back into portfolio categories, you'll see we now have a new field at the bottom that says portfolio category image, no image selected, and we can add an image in from this point. So now we go through the process of naming our different categories for our portfolio. We can also upload an image directly into them. So I'm going to quickly go ahead and do just that. I'm going to create a couple of categories, include some images in there, and then we'll move on. Now that we've gone ahead and created those categories and added some images, the next thing I want to do is just drop in a couple of examples for our portfolio. This is going to make things easier when we're building the template structure out. We'll see some demonstration information in there, just makes the whole design process easier. So if we come over to our portfolio section on the left hand side, we're going to click on add new, and that's going to take us into the portfolio editor. Now at the moment we're using the classic editor, so you're going to see what is a traditional sort of look to WordPress. You may see something slightly different, you may have Gutenberg installed, but don't worry, other than the visual differences, they all work in exactly the same kind of fashion. Now at the moment we have a very simple layout. We have the name of the portfolio item, the description, the featured image, and the portfolio category. The category is what we've just set up as a custom taxonomy. So basically what we have here is a very simple layout. If we want to, we can easily add in custom fields, and let's just do that. For example, if we're doing things like graphic design and logo design, we might not have a website associated with it, whereas we might choose web design and we want to put a link through to the website. Well, we could set up additional custom fields and even use conditional logic to show those based upon the actual category that's being selected. So let's go back into a custom post type and let's create a new section in there and add in a couple of additional fields just so I can demonstrate how easy this is. Come back over to our custom field section. We're going to come in and add a new field group. In here, we're just going to call this portfolio additions, just so we know what we're dealing with. Then we've got the post type is equal to. This time we're going to change that from post. I'm going to come down to portfolio. So this will only apply to that portfolio custom post type. Anything else won't see these fields. So come in, we're going to click to add a new field, and we're just going to call this project URL. field name underneath, you can see it automatically populates that. Now I'm going to leave this as a text field because I just want to display it. I don't want to do anything else with it, but you could, if you wanted to, set it to any of the other field types that's applicable to what you're doing. Once we've done that, we're going to come down and we're going to say, is this required? We're going to leave it as no, because there might not always be a URL associated with the project. We could use, again, like I say, conditional logic. So if we enable that, you can see we could do something like show if project URL, for example, is something, something, something. So we could set up different conditions if we wanted to inside there. We'll leave it as it is. Let's add another field in. And for this field, we're just going to add some extra information in. So let's go through and say, well, we might have multiple images for this particular project. So let's just create a project gallery. And underneath, you'll see it'll automatically populate that for us. This time, we're going to choose a field type, and we're going to come down and we're going to say we want gallery. Now, one thing that's worth bearing in mind, if you are using the free version of Advanced Custom Fields, you won't have access to this particular field type. You could, if you wanted to, just create ordinary file fields and upload one image at a time and adjust your layout accordingly if you didn't want to sort of stump up the cache for ACF Pro. However, we are using Pro in this, so I can use that option. Required, again, we don't want to worry about being required. Return format, because we're dealing with a gallery and the way that we want to set this up, I'm going to leave this as an image array. Preview size is only going to be used inside the dashboard of WordPress when we're creating our custom post. So you can set that to whatever value you want. 300 by 300 is perfectly fine. And you can see we've got the library. What do we want to do with this? Do we want to upload it to the media library, or do we want to just include it with the post? For me, I'm going to say upload to post. This means that I can limit where those files reside, so it's only associated with the post. But again, if you want to make any of the files you upload available throughout your ordinary media library, you can just choose all. It's just a personal preference for the way that I like to work with these. Come down and you can see we've got file types allowed. So again, we could come in here and we could say we want to limit this to JPEGs, and we say we want JPEG. We'll have both spellings of that, so we'll have JPG. GIF files, and finally PNG. So that means we can't have anyone accidentally upload like a PDF or a Word file or something. We don't want to make this required, so we've got everything we want done now. So we've set that up. We're going to come back, click on publish. That's our new custom field group, all set up and linked through to our portfolio custom post type. And now if we come back into portfolios and come into add new, we should now find we've got two additional fields, the project URL and the project gallery. So now we've created not only a custom post type, we've also created custom fields associated with the portfolio, which we can then start to reference inside the template files that we're going to create next. So let's go through and create our first portfolio item, and then I'll pause the video and I'll add a couple more in just so we've got some demo data. So let's just come in and put a title in. So we'll drop in some basic text into there. Project URL we'll set up to be the link to my website. Project gallery, we can click on there and we can add what we want in. So first of all, let's say this is for web design. We'll set our featured image, and I'm just going to choose any of these, doesn't really matter which one I choose. And then the project gallery, we're going to click, I'm going to come down and say add gallery. And from there we can select our files, or we can upload files. So I'm going to select some files from my computer, upload those and link those through to this particular project. I'll just drag those into there, let those potentially upload, and we'll say select. There's our images in there. So there's everything we need for our first portfolio item. We'll hit publish and we've created our first item. I'm going to go through, like I say, this process a couple more times so we get a couple more examples in here, and then we'll move on to start building up those template files. And there we go. There's our portfolio items. 3 different businesses, some overlapping, some in individual categories. Next thing we need to do is come over to our pages section, and we're going to create that index page. That's going to be our portfolio index. Come down to all pages. I've already gone ahead and created a blank page. So there's nothing on here. I've just literally created the page and called it portfolios. That's it. So next thing you're going to do is come in and say edit with Elementor. We're going to open that up. Now this is where you need to have Anywhere Elementor Pro. This is where we're going to have that ability to be able to link in the taxonomies we can't normally do inside Elementor itself. First thing I'm going to do, just get rid of this title at the top. So we're going to the settings, hide our title from there. We're going to come back to our widgets and we're going to just type in AE. Everything to do with Anywhere Elementor has AE in front of it, so you can simply type that in to filter it out to just see the widgets you have available. And what we're looking for is the taxonomy options. We want taxonomy blocks. You can see we've got post blocks. If you come a bit further, we've got taxonomy blocks. Drag and drop that in. Just make a bit of space for this. So you're just going to come into the padding and just add a little bit of space at the top and the bottom, just to give it a bit of room to breathe. And you can see at the moment it's pulling in uncategorized, and that's basically just the normal default post categories that you'd have when you install WordPress to start off with. So what we need to do now is go through and tell it what we want to use. Before we do, let's take a look. Skins, we can choose from classic, card and list. We're going to choose card, and we can go through and style this any way we want afterwards anyway. Categories, not what we want. We want to click on there and we want to choose portfolio categories because this is the taxonomy that we've created that we want to use inside this particular section. Click on that. You can see we've now got graphic design, logo design, web design, and so on. So we now have the right sections in there. We don't have any images. You can, if you want to, display only ones that have content in them. So in other words, any portfolio that doesn't have any content, it will automatically hide that by using the hide empty. Up to you how you'd like to do that. Come to the layout section, you can see we now have options for styling and specifying what we want to display. So if you don't want to have the numeric information in there, you don't need to have that in there. It's entirely up to you what you want to do. Before we move on and worry about styling these, how do we go about getting the image to display? So if we come to the image section on the left hand side, you can see it says image type is set to default. We change that. We've got the option for custom field. And once we select that, we now have a new option for where do we want to get that information from? What's the name of the custom field? So we just jump back over to our custom field section. You can see portfolio category extras and portfolio additions. Well, it's the portfolio category extras that we want. Click on there, and there's the only field type that we created, our custom field, portfolio category image. I'm going to copy that, jump back over, and we're simply going to paste that in there. And we let that refresh, and you see it now pulls in the relevant image that we created, when we uploaded, when we created our custom taxonomy, our custom grouping for all of our different portfolio items. So that's the first thing set up. We've now created that simple listing that will display the taxonomies. We can now move on and start creating the other templates that we need, one for the actual projects underneath that particular category, and then finally the single post page that will display the details, including the custom fields for the URL and so on that we included. Okay, so once we've done this, I'm going to leave the styling as is. I'm sure you can figure out how to go through and style all that using the style tab. All the normal options are in there, so you can just do whatever you need to make sure this looks as good as it can. So let's just save that. We'll update it. We've now created our new first page. So let's come back out of Elementor, come back out of our normal pages, and we're going to come this time into the template section for Elementor Pro, and we're going to come down to theme builder. Underneath the theme builder, I've already got a couple of things in here from different projects. We can ignore all those. What we're going to do though is we're going to come into archive so we can filter things out, and then we're going to say add new. Next thing we're going to do is choose what type of archive is this. So you see we've got archive and we've got all the other options in there. Archive is fine. We're now going to call this default portfolio archive. Now I tend to do things like this, and if you watch any of my other videos, you'll know the reasons why. But if not, if it's your first video, I always name things in a certain way. Default, because it's going to be the one that's used unless something else is going to supersede it. So if we have a template that we want to use that is just slightly different, but only used in a single case, I'll name that something different. And then next up, I say what it is. It's to do with the portfolio, which is a custom post type, and it's the archive page. So looking at that, I can immediately see what this relates to. Click on Create Template. Once we've done that, we can then start building out the template once Elementor loads in. So there we go. We've got some predefined archive layers if we wanted to use those. Now you can choose those if you want to, or you can build your own. For this example, I'm going to take you through and we're going to build our own. So let's just close this down. And because this is an archive, you see on the left hand side, Elementor has pulled up what it considers we're probably going to use because it's an archive. So let's grab the archive post, drag that over and drop that in. Now you can see what it does is it pulls in what it thinks is the right information, which in this example is just a post from the normal post type, which isn't what we want. We can change that very easily. We're going to come down to the little cog for the settings in the bottom left hand corner, click on there, come to the preview settings, and from the options we have, we're going to choose Portfolio Archive. Apply and preview, give that a second to reload, and we should now find there's our 3 items that we've got for the various different sections. What I'm going to do is give that a little bit of breathing space again, so we're going to come back into the advanced section and put some space in the top and the bottom. Now I'm not going to worry about styling these. You can style these in any way you want, enable, disable, everything you want to get them to look the way that you want. However, if you wanted to get a little bit more detailed with this, what you could do is use the Elementor Custom Skin, which is a free plugin that allows you to create custom layouts for your loop. Then you can assign those and you can design them any way you want to include any custom fields that you might want to pull in. I've got a video created on this, so if you've never seen it before, Put a link in the description below so you can check that out. I'd recommend it if you want to get a little bit more creative. Like I say, this video is all about how you do this, how you set things up, but if you want to use that, you could easily do that and change what we've done here to use your custom layout very easily. Okay, so there's the first thing done. We've now created the archive for this. So what we need to do is publish it and then set the condition that associates with it. Click add condition and you can see it says all archives, which is not what we want. What we need to do is only show us the categories. So what we're going to do is come up to this option, click, we're going to come down and we're going to say portfolio categories and we leave that set to all. So we'll say save and close. That will now show us the categories underneath portfolios. Once we've done that, we are finished with this particular section, so we can now come back out of this, exit to our dashboard, and we're now done with our portfolio archive. Now before we move on and create that single post archive, so we can display the actual details of each of our individual portfolio items, let's just check this out and see how it's all working. If we look at the portfolios section, you can see this now lists the 3 different groups that we've got: graphic design, logo design, and web design, and also the number of businesses that are associated with that, or the number of items that are associated with that. So we click on graphic design, for example, there's 1 item under this. We can click and you can see this will take us through to the design group. Come back out of there, go to logo design, you can see we've got logos are us and the design group. And finally, if you go to the web design, we now have design group and a web designer. So you can see we've easily set up the first 2 stages of this. The third one, like I say, is to go through and create the single template to display the business details or the portfolio details. So we click and take a look. You can see we've got a very plain blank vanilla layout that has none of the information we need other than just the title and the details. So let's go back into our dashboard. Let's come back into our template section and theme builder. And this time we're going to create that single post. So I'm going to click the single again. I'm going to say add new. Single is perfectly fine. Select the post type, which we want to be portfolio. And then we're going to call this default single portfolio. Create our template. And once we're inside there, we can start building that out. Okay, so we close this down and we've got a blank page ready to start building things. So now we can just put in all the different elements that we want to actually detail this particular post. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to grab in the featured image. Let's make a bit of space for that. So we'll just increase the space at the top and the bottom in the same way that we've done with the other designs for the pages. And you can set these up in any way you want. You can set up any kind of configuration, whatever you want to do with it. So next up, we're going to come in and we're going to put in a nice little gallery underneath there. And for that, we're going to use the carousel option. So just come back up, type in carousel, and we say image carousel, drag and drop that underneath there. Now, because we're dealing with dynamic data, it's very easy to pull that in. So all we need to do is come up to the source for the images, click on the dynamic icon and come down and say ACF gallery field. Now you can see absolutely nothing happens. You said you want to use a gallery field, but no images are displaying. Reason being is because we need to tell it what ACF gallery field we want to use. Because your custom post type may have multiple in there and you may have different ones for different parts of your template. All you need to do is click on the little wrench icon, click on there, and in the key section, just choose the relevant gallery that you want to pull in. So project gallery, once you do that, that will now pull in some of the images and we can go ahead and start styling things. So let's just change this to bigger versions of those images. So you can see now we've got a nicer look. We're going to come in and we're going to say default slides to show. Let's just say we want to do 2 at a time. And slides to scroll, well, we'll leave that at default and we can stretch images and do all kinds of good things on there. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. Just say, yes, you want to stretch the image. You know, whatever you want to do to style these things up. You can set the link to do something, like to go to a media file or a custom URL. So let's just say we'll have media file so you can click on it and get the bigger version of it. Whatever you want to do, it's entirely up to you. Even dropping in captions can be done inside this particular widget. Okay, so we've created what we want on there. Actually, let's just set that to 3 so it doesn't look quite so big. Okay, so we set those aspects up on there. Next thing we're going to do, come back into our widgets. I'm going to come down, drag in our post title, drop that underneath there. Then we're going to come back to our widgets again. We're going to pull in the post content, drop that underneath there. There's our details for our post content. Again, we're going to come back in and we're going to say we're going to drop in the post info. We'll put that underneath the heading so we can see who posted it, when they posted it, and what time they posted it. We'll take off comments because that's disabled on this anyway. So next up, we can now go through and add in some of those custom fields that we created. So to come back over, this time we're going to come down to heading and we're going to drag and drop that heading below. Now that'll drop in the normal heading and we can just basically ignore that. All we need to do is click on the dynamic option. I'm going to come right the way down to the bottom to ACF field, click on there, and again, like we did previously, click on that wrench icon and tell it where we want to find that info. we'll say project URL. We'll come before that, we'll say project link, so we can see what goes in there. And then what we'll do is we'll just simply come in, set that to be something like H6, so it doesn't have quite the same heavy relevance. Come over to our styling, and we can do is we can just simply come in there and style this any way you want. Now obviously you can't use heading, you could use a text block, a link, whatever you want to use, you could use it and style it any way that you want to. So let's just say we're going to come into this, we'll set that to be a smaller link, we'll change the size on there to something like that, change the weight to a bit heavier, actually looks a bit better. There we go, so we've now created our link on there. And that's the basics of creating this. Now, I've set this up to be more like a business with some images and things and some details and all those kind of things. But you can basically set this up to use it for whatever you want. It could be a portfolio of just images, project details. It could be buildings that you've worked in if you're an architect. It could be anything you want. The technique is the important thing. What you actually use inside there is entirely up to you, and hopefully that's what you kind of get out of these tutorials. It's all about just understanding the techniques behind doing something, and then you can just modify it to your own use case. Okay, so we've done that. Let's click on publish, and once we've done that, we now need to go through and tell it where we want to use it. Now it's pretty intelligent when it comes to Elementor Pro, and the theme sort of conditions are generally quite good. So you can see what it says is, because we've set this up and associated with the portfolios, it knows it's a portfolio, it's going to be working with that. So it says portfolios, and it says all. Well, that's exactly what we want. So we can click save and close, and we've now finished with that. So let's come back over to our test page. Let's come back to our portfolios. And as you can see, everything is laid out we wanted. So we can click to go through to our graphic design businesses. There's the business associated with graphic design. We click on that, and we now go through to our new custom layout for our particular business. It looks pretty ugly. But like I say, the whole point is not how to style this, it's just how to build it. You can style it any way you want afterwards. So there we go. That's how we can go about building more feature-rich websites using Anywhere Elementor Pro's widgets, and specifically the taxonomy widget. If you want to get more out of WordPress, consider taking a look at the videos you can see on screen right now. They're going to help you get more advanced topics, more skills in WordPress, helping you earn more money. As always, all the applicable links are in the description below. If you've got any comments, questions, or feedback on anything covered in this video, or anything you'd like to see covered in future videos, please drop those into the comment section. I'd love to get your feedback. As always, my name's been Paul C. This has been WPTuts, and until next time, take care.